Death has taken my cousin, Alan Kowit, Avram Wolf ben Herschel Venechia, from his family circle and his community of friends. With Alan's passing, the world is darkened. In our silence, there's lamentation. Our tears are tears of sorrow, but not of regret. Rabbana Shalom, Master of the universe, be with this family as we mourn. Jewish tradition commands us to turn to the book of Psalms at a time of death. Like the Kaddish prayer we'll say at the end of the service at the cemetery, the Psalms affirm life. And how appropriate it is to affirm life when we think of Alan, a man who, in the words of the Torah reading for Yom Kippur, was one who always uvacharta v'chayim, who always chose life. The psalmist begins the book of Psalms with the words, Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach batzat risha'im u'v'derech hata'im lo amad, u'moshav leitzim lo yashav ki im b'torat Adonai chefetzo, v'torato yegei yamam v'layla, v'haya ka'et shatul al palgei mayim, asher piryo yitain bito, v'halehu lo yibol, v'chol asher yaseh yatzliach. Happy is the man who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, or taken the path of sinners, or joined the company of the insolent. Rather, the teaching of God is his delight, and he lives that teaching day and night. He's like a tree planted beside a stream of water that yields its fruit in season, and whose fruit will continue to flourish. Alan, along with his life partner and best friend, Sherry, his bride for the past 53 years, they are truly an Eitz Chaim, a tree of life, that produced an amazing family of children and grandchildren. Brad and Tammy and Marla and Scott, David and Lori, Alex, Sari, Emily, Noah, Jake, Aiden, Zoe, and Sydney. And we're going to hear from them a little later in the service. Alan lived his life with the chronic condition of juvenile diabetes, but never complained. Never asked why me. And he lived every single day of his life to its fullest extent. Sherry, you and Alan lived in the same house for over half a century. And that house was an amazing home and really community center, because your extended family and friends and your kids' friends and your grandchildren's friends, everyone congregated on Gates Mills Boulevard. The psalmist continues in Psalm 15 with the words, Adonai mi yagur bo halecha, mi yishkan bahar kadshecha. Adonai, who may abide in your house and who may dwell in your holy mountain? And then he answers with what I believe is a description of my cousin Alan. He who is upright, who acts justly, who speaks the truth within his heart, who does not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, but who scorns the lawless and honors those who revere God, who gives his word and come what may, does not retract, who does not exploit others or take a bribe. The psalmist concludes, Ose ele lo yamot leolam, those who live in this way shall never be shaken. We affirm and confirm today that Alan Kowit, who lived in this way, shall never ever be forgotten. Alan's Hebrew name, as I mentioned it a moment ago, was Avram. So the famous first Avram is, of course, our patriarch Abraham, who we read about on Rosh Hashanah. In one of my favorite stories about the biblical Abraham, he pleads for the residents of Sodom and Gomorrah. And Abraham there is described as a man of tzedek and mishpat, of righteousness and justice. And it says there that because of his example, his children and future generations will be a blessing to the world. Tzedek is the root not only of justice but of charity. And the term mishpat describes a person who always chooses the ethical over the expedient, one who instinctively chooses to do the next right thing. Avram Volf was a true heir of our patriarch Abraham. Sherry, the two of you were fruitful and multiplied and created generations of Jews to carry on our ancient tradition, and always committed to the values of tzedek and mishpat, of righteousness and justice. Alan was truly an amazing father to Brad and Marla and David, and also a father not in law but in love to their spouses Tammy, Scott, and Lori. And the real joy, the ultimate joy of his life and his allies against his children were this band of grandchildren: Alex, Sari, Emily, Zoe, Sydney, Noah, Jake, and Aiden. And I'd like to ask all of you to come forward at this time. And Alex, Sari, and Zoe are going to share some words on behalf of their siblings and cousins.
Hi, everyone. So a couple of weeks ago, Papa celebrated his birthday, and we thought as a family we would all write a couple of things that we really remember about him and some things that he taught us. And we feel that it didn't really get recognized at the time, so we thought now would be a nice time to share a couple of those stories. I know something that I wrote personally was that he, right after my high school graduation, took me to purchase my first watch, and we walk into the watch store, and of course he knows the dealer, and they're chatting it up for a few minutes because it's where he probably spent the second most time after the couch. But anyways, he took me there and purchased my first watch, and I still have it, still wear it almost every day. So for him to share his greatest passion with me was very special, and I know it was for him as well. Something the last couple of days that the two boys here have been talking about is that Papa taught them how to play poker and blackjack and a bunch of other card games. So now whenever they hang out with their friends, they get to take all their money, thanks to him. So I'm going to pass it over to my sister, who has a couple things to say as well.
I wanted to share some of the memories of our weekly Friday night sleepovers at Mama and Papa's. We always would play cards or run around outside, and then we'd eat a whole tray of brownies with the best icing ever. Thank you, Nama. Zoe has a story too.
So, we had this little toy turtle that looked so lifelike. It was maybe about that big. And this turtle would turn on and it would walk all over the place and sing a song, and it would scare the living daylights out of the boys when they were little. I remember that is one of my favorite things to look forward to when I went over to Mama and Papa's house. So Noah and I would always sleep over their house Saturday night, and the five of us would always watch movies, play Rummy Cube, eat loads of food. Just a lot of fun times together. Times that we'll never forget.
The book of Ecclesiastes, we're told for everything there's a season, a time for every experience under the sun. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to grieve and a time to dance. A time to embrace and a time to let go. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silent and a time to speak. And I ask my brother, Rabbi Mark Borowitz, to come forward and say some words about our cousin Alan.
So, Alan was just cool. He just was. Growing up, he was the cool older cousin. And he didn't talk a lot. Of course, in his household, his brother, Gary Oliver Sholem, took up a lot of the noise, or made a lot of the noise. And Alan would sit there just quietly. And when he spoke, even a rambunctious young cousin like me stopped to listen. Because that was the power of Alan. You know, we're having a Jewish service, we're reading Psalms, we're doing all this, and the question is, for some people is why? Alan didn't go to shul, he wasn't a religious man, and I would beg to differ. And I'll tell you how he was religious. In the hospital, I think it was Saturday, he was trying to speak or tell Sherry something. And he, of course, couldn't speak, and he's motioning with letters, and he's doing this, and nobody's understanding, and this wonderful nurse went and got the alphabet on a chart. So he points to the letters P-A-Y. And then he goes to sleep for 5 minutes. What does it mean? They're trying to figure it out. What? Vervace. And then he wakes up, and I think it was Marla who helped him again, and he got the chart again, and he taps out P-A-L, PayPal. Now, if you knew Alan, you knew that eBay and PayPal were big. So what happens? They go home. Sherry and Alex go to the house, and there's a UPS package. He bought the love of his life, and the last thing that he did, the last thing he did for her was make sure that she had a beautiful red Jaguar. And he bought that, and that's what she went home to on Saturday. You know, in our family, we used to play a lot of cards. What? It's a miniature. I figured they knew that. I thought these people were sharp and smart, and they knew Alan. So it's a miniature, very small. So, Alan, in our family, we played a lot of cards growing up. In fact, that was our family. That's the way we showed each other love and arguing. because nobody in our family ever played cards for fun. We played to win. And Alan played life to win. He lived life to win. He had one of his sayings was, actually one of the things about him was he loved his vodka straight. And as somebody who knows a little bit about vodka, I understand that. And the other thing is that he was a serious collector. Whatever Alan did, he did. He dived in. He learned everything about it. His watches, his knives, anything that he got interested in, he learned everything, as Alex said. And every one of his kids has one of his watches. So on their wrist, they always see Dad, Papa, Alan. The other thing is that he was always loving. I mean, he was a guy who went through a lot, and he never said a bad word about anybody. I mean, it was crazy. When I was at my worst, he still embraced me. He couldn't find it in his heart to say bad things about other people. I mean, in today's day and age, that's like unbelievable. So who was Alan Kowit? Alan Kowit was the most religious of all people because he cared for the stranger, the widow, the poor, and the orphan. He loved deeply and completely. He was a mensch. He loved and loved and loved. And he shared that love for all these years with Sherry. They loved each other. They had cocktails at 5 and then 3:30. And they just, it was never Sherry or Alan. It was always Alan and Sherry or Sherry and Alan. And the loss that we feel, the loss that is here in our souls and our hearts is tremendous. Sherry, kids, grandkids, know that all of us are holding you in our hearts, holding you in our beings, and that we loved your husband, we loved your father, we loved your grandfather. And we're all better people because of him. I ask everyone to rise for the El Molei Rachamim. I know. El Molei Rachamim Shochem B'Ramamim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Tacha Kanfei Ashchina Im Kadoshim Utorim Kazohar Akia Mazhirim Et Nishmat Avram Wolf Ben Herschel V'Nechaya Shalach Leolamo Ba'al HaRachamim Yastirehu B'Seter Kanafecha Leolamim Vayitzror B'Yitzror Achayim Et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato V'Yanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo V'Nomar Amen. Compassionate God, Spirit of the universe, we know that you give perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Alan Kowit, who's entered eternity. God of mercy, we know that Alan finds refuge in your presence, and his soul is bound up in the bond of everlasting life. He is our inheritance, and you are his. We know he rests in peace, and we all say, Amen. Please be seated. I got it. Okay, the family will be receiving friends and relatives at the residence of Brad and Tammy Kowit, 2783 Psalm Center Road, Hunting Valley, immediately after the interment until 8 p.m. tonight. Tomorrow from 1 to 4 and 6 to 8, and then Friday 1 to 4. Contributions are suggested to the Juvenile Diabetes JDRF Northeast Ohio chapter. And you can get, I can tell you the address, but you can get it. I would ask the pallbearers to please come up now.